I don't think there's a version where Donald Trump wins slow. Is there? Let's see. Let's review. So there are 3 states that are going to count votes more slowly. And those 3 states are the states that you don't want them to be. They are Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania. So you can imagine.
Hang on one sec. Let me do this for anybody who is listening who doesn't follow politics, doesn't know what the fuck's going on. Like I want to play dumb because I used to be really dumb on this. So just for context, real quick, there's so much noise out there. Andrew and I hopefully break this down for you. There's 538 total electoral college votes. You need 270 votes to win. And essentially, a lot of them are already baked. So there's really like 201 votes up for grabs because 331 of them or so are already locked. So with that context, Andrew, take away. I meant to interrupt you, but only because if there's
the path is 270. Yeah, completely.
Yeah.
I was assuming that folks know that Michigan, Pennsylvania, Wisconsin are swing states or battleground states. And so those 3 states not having their votes in on election night will likely present a problem. Like it's not a situation where you can pencil them in as blue or red. Mm-hmm. So if we're going to get a quick result on election night, it's going to not involve those 3 states.
Right.
It's very hard for me to imagine a scenario where Pennsylvania in particular is just so clearly for one candidate that they call it, despite the fact that a lot of votes haven't been counted. I don't see them calling Pennsylvania or Michigan or Wisconsin for that matter. Mm-hmm. There was one poll that came out that had Joe Biden up by 17 in Wisconsin.
Right? Yeah.
So it's conceivable that Wisconsin just goes so much for Joe that even with the mail-in vote not entirely counted, that people are comfortable calling it. Still something that I see as unlikely. Mm-hmm. So election night scenarios, you have to contemplate them without knowing any of those 3 states' results. Mm-hmm. Joe has an advantage in paths to 270. He has a lot more paths to get there. Trump needs to essentially win every state that he needs to win to get to 270. 270 is close to his ceiling. There's a world where Joe Biden's ceiling is 350, where he just wins high by a mile. So the main scenario for Joe to become the clear winner Tuesday night is if some of the big battleground states that are not those 3 go to him. So let's say Florida and North Carolina. If Florida and North Carolina go to Joe, then he might be able to get to 270 even without any of the 3 slower states.
There's 7 states I think that really matter. You just said a bunch of them, but it's Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Florida, North Carolina, Arizona. That's what you're looking at. And essentially, Biden wins 3 of those, it's over. And if he wins Florida, it's pretty much over, all in, right? If he wins just Florida, by the numbers, that won't happen. He'll probably win one of the others. But if he wins Florida, it's probably pretty much close to over. Trump needs 5. So that's where Biden is favored, is because of basically that math. These are all toss-ups, leaning Joe in many cases. So I think the likely path, and I want to know you agree with, if you had to guess, the likely path if either of them win, the likely path for Joe to win is that he takes Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, and probably Pennsylvania, because in all of those he's favored. He's got an 85 to 94% chance of winning all 4 of those, individually. And then Trump, if he wins, he basically has to win Florida, North Carolina, Ohio, which he's winning in, and then he'd have to take Pennsylvania, and then one of whatever's next. Either you could probably throw
exactly.
In there.
So if Florida, North Carolina go to Joe, it's pretty much all she wrote.
That's the election night key.
If that comes in election night, then we go to sleep knowing that Joe's going to be president, and the transition occurs hopefully pretty straightforwardly, where if it's that clean, it's going to be very hard for Donald Trump not to concede. I know that some people in the Biden campaign are actually strategizing around trying to get a quick knockout by investing more heavily in Florida and North Carolina, though right. They had me campaign in Pennsylvania, so they're leaving nothing to chance. They're not. Right. They don't seem to be over emphasizing the timing of the thing. They just want to win, which is the right approach. You know, you're just going to win.
So you've got Florida, according to 538, which I think is they were the closest, essentially, at least in public press outlets, because they aggregate all the polls and just do an algorithm. They're the closest to predicting 2016. They said Hillary had a 71% chance of winning, where the rest of the press said it was well into the high 90s. They are saying that Biden has a 62% chance of winning Florida and 64% chance of winning North Carolina. Those are toss-ups. Those are, it's roll the die. It's going to come down to turnout and possibly some, shenanigans with mail-in voting or COVID voting, if you will. But that's where you agree. I mean, like they're saying, that's where we focus. And if Biden wins one of those, it's great. Florida in particular, Biden's gonna have a good night. We agree.
Yeah. So that's where you should be investing and paying attention. Certainly on election night. And you should not hold your breath waiting for Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, or Michigan, and don't worry about it. Like, the fact that those aren't going to be reported doesn't tell you that Joe's going to win or not win. If
Biden loses those, it's not over either. Sorry, to be clear. Like, if Biden loses North Carolina, Florida, he's still got plenty of paths to victory. Sorry.
Yeah, and that is a possibility. Historically, North Carolina has been tougher terrain for Democrats, and Florida too, slightly. I'm very confident that Joe's going to win this thing. I'm not sure if it's going to be Tuesday night reporting style, but I'm very confident that he's going to win this thing if votes are counted and the process holds up. Let's consider again each of them in turn. There are a number of variables, though some of the variables extend beyond election night. So I guess we'll just focus on election night. So you're right to look at the map. As the election returns come in, definitely it's going to be very exciting. But if these states start getting called for Joe, then that's enormous. And there is a real chance that there's a blue wave all around the country. I genuinely think that in a time when 72 to 80% of Americans think this is the worst time in their lifetimes, that's not like an incumbent type atmosphere, especially when this incumbent does not seem like the guy who's going to lead you out.
Right.
So I think there's going to be a blue wave. I think the Democratic majority in the House is going to grow. The Senate's going to flip. There's going to be a unified government. That's the way I think this is going to go. As we're having this conversation, 75 million Americans have voted already. And by the time people are hearing this on Monday, it's going to be a significantly larger number, and then everyone's going to turn out on Tuesday. I saw projections that said that this might be the highest turnout in 60 years because of mail-in voting and early voting. I think we should keep mail-in voting and early voting. I think it works better. Who wants to just have everything be banking on everyone showing up at the same time on one day? Why not just let us mail it in?
Throw everything off. Yeah, agreed.
So you have to imagine...
It's like a 4-hour wait in New York, man. Right, so there's a lot of people.
I'm so glad I mailed that in.
Yeah.
So you have to imagine an incredibly high turnout environment, and that's generally going to help Dems. So the size and enormity of the blue wave, and whether it crashes down in places like Texas and Alaska and South Carolina, Georgia, so interesting to me. This really could redefine the American political landscape for a long time. I mean, if Texas goes blue,
then it's over. Yeah, if you see Texas go, it's over.
That would be incredible. I don't necessarily expect that. Sorry, Beto. I expect it to be very, very tight, but I doubt it's going to get called for Joe Tuesday night. But if it were to, it's over. I'll just call it.
Let's call it. So let me ask you this: like, what's going to happen is you're going to start having, you're going to have these states I mentioned start reporting some results because they're going to be counting. And I think turnout models are going to be all over the map, right? So people are going to be afraid. To your point, I think you have turnout like we've never seen before from people of all, and on both sides. I think Dems maybe net benefit, but Republicans get a lot of turnout too. If you start to see, like, I kind of want your perspective on how to help our listeners watch the results come in on election night. When they start to see Wisconsin numbers come in, when you know they're going to take a couple days to tally everything, like, let's say it's 25% of results are in and they start announcing. Do you feel comfortable with that? Does that mean nothing because it's going to flip on the next 75?
So this is why it gets very frustrating, Zach. It just depends upon where the 25% is from. If it's 25% from an urban area in Wisconsin, then you'd expect it to skew very heavily Democratic, and then you take it with a massive grain of salt. If somehow they were to say to you, this 25% is a representative cross-section of the whole state, then statistically you could say, all right, I guess we know what's happening.
Right.
That's one reason why they keep digging into which counties it's from, because if you're an experienced political journalist, you know which direction a county's supposed to go.
Right.
The thing I look for is results that surprise the journalist involved, where they're someplace and they were like, well, I remember during the weekend after Super Tuesday where they were digging into what was happening in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and they were like, if Bernie doesn't win this county by like 1 million votes or whatever, then it's going to be a really rough night. So it's that kind of thing where if they can find an anomaly, then that's a sign. But the raw vote totals, it's hard to tell because you don't know what counties they're coming from. Thank you for listening in. I hope you enjoyed this conversation. If you did, please do subscribe to Yang Speaks and click on notifications so we can let you know every time we have a new episode.